Hi, good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. Let me know if you guys can see me okay, if you can hear me okay. It's nice to see you guys all in the chat here. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Felicia from SweetGeorgia, and this is our live office hours for the School of SweetGeorgia. We do this every month. It happens on the last Thursday of every month. And the link to join this live stream, which you guys will know, this live stream in the chat is only available to the members of the school. So if you're watching this video after the live stream date and you wish that you could have been there in the chat room, or you wish that you could have asked a question, I encourage you to join us as a member of the school. So you can find all that information at schoolofsweetgeorgia.com. So if you have any questions today, you're more than welcome to ask them here on the call. You can just pop them into the chat. And I can see so many things happening on the chat already. It's wonderful to see you guys, to see your names popping up. It's fantastic. Thank you guys so much for being here. So I wanted to share with you, let's go right into the slides. We have like a lot of stuff to talk about today. Let's go. So in today's session, we're going to be showing you the new content that's happening in the school. We talk about that always. I talk about community events just as a reminder of all of the things that are coming up, and as well some of the upcoming Zoom workshops that we're doing, the natural dye study group. Hopefully you guys are going to join us for that. And then I'll show you a little bit of my progress so far, of things that I'm working on right now. And yeah, we're going to answer some questions that you guys have sent me and also show some of your beautiful, beautiful work. So great. Many of you guys, this is the first time that you've been here. So thank you so much for being here. So in terms of new content, I wanted to share with you some of the courses that have just come out on the school. So this is one of the latest ones. It's by Tabitha, our design director, Tabitha Hedrick. And so this one is called Perfect Fit, and it is really about helping you figure out what is the right size to make when you're looking at a knitting pattern. So she talks about how to take measurements properly, how to figure out how much ease you want so that it's comfortable, so that you get a sweater that will fit you and feel good, and helping you make adjustments if needed as well. There's this pattern. It's called a Miram tee. It's a t-shirt pattern, very, very simple to do, and that's one of the things that is included as well with the course, so you can check that out. The other one that just came live is the wet felting course by Charlotte. So this is Charlotte's first time teaching, and she is teaching using the fiber bat that is created from doing a blending board bat, and then taking that blending board bat and then felting it, like not necessarily spinning it. So you might use fiber in all sorts of different ways. You don't necessarily have to take fiber and spin it every time. You could also take it, make it into a bat, make it into a piece of felt, like a wet felted piece of felt, and then all the things that you can do with that felt. So in this case, she teaches you how to make the wet felted felt, and then make that into coasters. She's made a bunch of flower brooches that are really, really lovely, and then she also teaches you how to do a felted soap. That's something that is very often like a nice Christmas present to make, like a very simple, cute Christmas gifts to make. So these are all really nice things that you can do with fiber that aren't necessarily spinning. The next one that is about spinning is Spinning Sheep Breeds. This is a big, long, epic course that is being taught by Rachel Smith of Welford Pearls. You guys might know her from this wool and spinning podcast. She's on YouTube, and she has community as well. And so Module 2 is all about long wools. And so that is now available. And we're just breaking up the content and sort of launching it every couple of weeks, so that way there's time to digest all of the content that's in these workshops here. So that one you can check out as well. And this one is the one that we just filmed. It is going to be so much fun. This one is taught by Diana Twist. Diana is the instructor who teaches the Spinning with Suspended Spindles workshop in the school right now. And so this is kind of like going to the next level and spinning more of the yarns that she's really, really interested in spinning, including a lot of carded preparations. So in this case, Diana is showing you how she works with a blending board, how she makes Rolags off of it, what she does with those Rolags in order to spin them. And then she also looks at different ways of preparing fiber, like with hand carders to also make Rolags, hand carders to like blend up different fibers, and then also using drum carders to do carded preparations. And what else did she use? Oh, a hackle. So if you guys have never seen a hackle before, it's kind of like a very, very wide comb. So it's probably about this wide or so, and it's got all of these metal tines, and you kind of just put all your fiber all the way across on this giant hackle, and then you can pull the fiber off and it becomes like this beautiful combed preparation. But you can also mix and blend colors as you're working with a hackle. So if you've never seen that before, she will demonstrate how to use a hackle. But it's all these different ways of preparing fiber to make lots of beautiful things. So you can see all of the beautiful Rolags that she has there. That photo in the top right hand corner, that is just a photo that I took on Friday. It's just like a snapshot of like a quarter of the things that are being shown in this class. I have so many things to take photos of for this. So you can see, yeah, see, these are some of the Rolags that came out of it. I have more to show you from this particular class. And one of the giveaway for today is also from this class. So very, very excited to share more with you about that. So the next class that currently is being edited is the punch needle class. And so we did punch needle with Sam of Kusin and Kiss. She has an Etsy shop. You can find her there. And she came in and she did a couple of punch needle projects with us. And this course is so close to being released right now. I'm just going to quickly show you what I made. I came out of the filming session with Sam, and I was just really, really inspired. And so there was a photo of the coasters that she taught us how to make. But then I went home and I made one tiny little coaster with sample yarn that I had dyed for, like those dyeing triangles that we do where you're testing a whole bunch of yarn and things like that. I took some of those colors and I made myself a little coaster. I still have yet to do the finishing on it, where you actually fold over all of the edges, like you cut and trim and sew the edges down and everything like that to make the proper coaster. But once it's done, I'm going to have a nice coaster for my coffee mug. Yeah, and I think that these coasters are such a great project because all of the techniques that she shows you for how to make this little coaster, this is exactly what you would do if you were making a much larger rug project. So all of the skills that you learn in something small and mini like this could be expanded and made into a big giant project. And you can find Sam at Kusin and Kiss on Instagram, and you can see this. She's gone through a very, very detailed progression for making a punch needle rug, and it's a beautiful rug. She brought it to the studio, so we took pictures of it, and she filmed a little bit with it and everything like that. But it's a beautiful, beautiful rug, and you can follow her on Instagram to see the progression of that. So yeah, I'm looking forward to making more of these coasters. She got me sucked in, and I ended up getting an additional punch needle at a different size in order to do different kinds of yarn. But one of the things that is really great about the punch needle class is that idea that you can just use small scraps of yarn. Just like when I sometimes will encourage people to take their yarn, like a big skein of yarn, and just cut it right through the middle so that you get strands, and then you can dye those different strands different colors for your dyeing triangles. It saves time having to make mini skeins and things like that, but now you have like a whole bunch of random strands of yarn. So those strands you can use for punch needle. It's actually perfect. Yeah, so there's no waste. There's lots and lots of things that you can do with all of your yarn. So that is that one. And then let's go to the community events. So this is a reminder of all of the upcoming community events that are happening. So I updated this page with, you can see a snapshot of what June looks like right now. So you can see every other Tuesday, the first and third Tuesday, we do a knitting meetup in the morning with Robin, one of our moderators on the school. And then on Thursdays, the second and fourth Thursday in the evening, Charlotte hosts a knit night. And many of the people in that knit night have been meeting for a long time now. That a lot of them are local Vancouver knitters as well, but you're more than welcome to join any of those knitting meetups. And then on the Saturday, the third Saturday of every month, Vicky, also one of our moderators from the school, she hosts the spinning and weaving meetup. And so you can bring your spinning wheel, spin with her for an hour or so, and talk about what you're weaving. All of that kind of stuff can be done on that Saturday. And then you can see here we do the live office hours. It's on the last Thursday of every month. And also this coming month, we're going to be doing a couple of other things. So one of them is the Zoom workshop that's going to be happening with Kathy Hattori. And she's going to be talking about hand painting with natural dyes. She's going to be doing a bit of a lecture presentation on Zoom. And so if you're an all access member, that is all included in your membership. So all you need to do is you just go to this little event on the calendar page, or it's also in the course listing as well, and you'll find the link to go register for that event. You just need to register so you can save a spot so we know how many people are going to show up in the room. But otherwise, yes, the meetup, they're all virtual meetups. Someone is asking, DDMM is asking, are all these meetups in June, are they all virtual? And yes, they're all virtual through Zoom. And the last thing is this giant big green bar that's happening throughout the month, and that is the start of our natural dyeing study group. So starting June 1st, we're going to be doing the natural dye study group. And so every Tuesday, my goal is to release a little lesson. You can go to the study group page right now already. It's under the course listing. You can find it under dyeing. And every Tuesday, I'm hoping to release like a little written blurb. It's not really an essay. It's more like step-by-step, a look at what we could do every month. So we can talk about that in a second. And welcome, Diana's in the chat right now. She says, this is the first time ever I'm able to join in. So Diana, we just talked about the course. We just talked about your Rolex and stuff like that. And Rihanna is asking, is punch needle anything like latch hook? They are a little bit different. The punch needle that we are doing in this class with Sam is with that Amy Oxford punch needle tool. There's other kinds of punch needles that she demonstrates with as well, but it's different from latch hooking. Yeah, hopefully we can show you when the video comes out in like a week or so. You'll be able to see all of that coming together. Yeah, we just got to see all your lovely fiber, Diana. There's more. There's more. So the reminder about Kathy's Zoom workshops that are coming up. There's one in June. It's going to be 12 p.m. PST. And then there's one in July. And that one is going to be for indigo dyeing. And so it's going to be really tricky to actually show and demonstrate doing an indigo dye that on Zoom. And so a lot of the things she will do is she's going to take pictures beforehand. She's going to shoot a little bit of video beforehand as well, so that she can sort of show you the process for how to do all of these things. So again, all of these things are included in your membership. You just have to go and sign up so that we know how many people are going to be in the room and how many people to wait for when we start. So to look at the natural dyeing study group, this is basically what I was just mentioning about how all of these lessons are going to be coming out on the Tuesday. So first one will be June 1st, and then after that will be June 8th, and so on and so on and so on. So every Tuesday there's going to be a little thing that's going to be released. So if you go under courses, under dyeing, you'll find the natural dyeing study group right now, and these lessons will automatically release on those dates. And so the first week, this is just like a preview of what's going to be coming for week one. But week one, the idea is that we would start looking at some of Caitlin's videos, looking at module 1, looking at preparation, looking at generating ideas, coming up with a plan for what we want to dye this year, and then really importantly, downloading the PDF workbook. Because inside the workbook, there are photos of what all of the dye colors look like. And so that can help you plan what kind of colors you want to dye this year. Caitlin's class does not cover Indigo, but then that's where Kathy's class later on in July is going to cover Indigo. So you can kind of think ahead about the things that you might want to make. You might want to dye a whole bunch of different colors and then over dye some of the colors in iron, like Caitlin has demonstrated. But you could also save some of those skeins and then maybe dip some of them in Indigo. Or you could dip like half a skein in Indigo and just have like a bit of a variegated effect. So lots and lots of different things to think about as you start preparing your materials and your fiber, your supplies, all of this kind of stuff. So there's a little bit about project planning. And yeah, if you guys have any questions about the natural dyeing study group, you can feel free to enter that in the chat. But we also have a very active discussion forum going on right now for that. So if you go to the community, natural dyeing study group is in there, and then lots and lots of people are chatting right now about what they're planning to make. And so that is going to run for 10 weeks. So you can see, yeah, the link to the community is down here. So just to let you know about what is in those kits that we just recently released, and this is like if you need dye for the natural dye study group, you don't necessarily need to get it from us. There's also Maiwa in Vancouver is a fantastic supplier. So if you happen to be local to Vancouver, that's a great place to go. You can also get these directly from Botanical Colors or Earth Hues. There's lots of different places where you can get them. We just tried to pull together a couple of kits so that you would have everything all in the same place so that you wouldn't have to hunt for all of these things. But the idea is that there's one kit that has 6 different colors. And so there's cochineal, which is pink or pink red, camellia, which is yellow gold, lac, which is kind of like a plummy red sort of color, logwood is purple, madder is orangey red, and walnut is brown. And then there's a couple of other assists in here. So the calcium carbonate, the chalk, helps to make the madder more red, more bright. And there's iron power to help make everything darker. The gallo tannin is a kind of tannin. It's also kind of mordant, helps with the whole mordanting process for cellulose yarns, and soda ash for changing the balance of the alkalinity of your dye bath in case you need to modify anything to the pH of your dye bath will shift different colors, different dye colors. And so that's kind of what that is in there for. So that's the 6 dye colors. And then there's one with 12 different dye colors. And so we added the additional ones like chestnut, kutch, which is kind of like a honey brown kind of color, fustic, which is also yellow, pomegranate, I think that's like pinky brown, Himalayan rhubarb, which I'm very interested in trying as well, and weld, which is very, very, very yellow, very bright yellow, and you only need like a tiny, tiny, tiny little bit of it. So those are sort of the different colors that you could be playing with. And then what is not included is the mordant. And so the reason why we didn't include the mordant is because it depends on what you want to dye. So if you want to dye wool and silk and protein fibers, then you're going to need aluminum potassium sulfate, and then that's what you would use at 15%. So you do your calculations with that. If you wanted to do cellulose, then you have to do like scour for cellulose, and then you have to mordant for cellulose. And so mordanting for cellulose has a few more steps because you might be doing the aluminum acetate, you might be doing the calcium carbonate like the chalk bath, you might be doing the tannin bath with the gallo tannin. So there's a bunch of other things. So that's why I really encourage you guys to go download the PDF workbook that Caitlin has prepared, because that gives you the full list of everything that you need to do so that you can figure out what you actually need. Also, just a reminder as well, Caitlin just did a Q&A with us, a natural dyeing Q&A, and so that is on her course page. So if you go to the natural dyeing basics course with Caitlin, the very, 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 very last lesson, we added a page with the Q&A link, and there's so many questions. We talked straight for an hour. So many questions that she answered, and they are all time stamped so that you can just jump to the question that you're interested in. So that is all there as well. The other thing that is coming is that Indigo kit. So in preparation for the July Indigo session with Kathy, we've made this little kit, which basically uses the ingredients that she's going to be describing in this process of making a 1,2,3 fructose indigo vat. So there's organic indigo in there, there's the fructose, and there's calcium hydroxide. If you like look around on the internet or in books about this kind of process, you might also see it being done with bananas, like overripe bananas, which is really interesting. Which is, yeah, it's what a great use for bananas that are about to be composted. But they're like using the sugar that comes out of those overripe bananas as one of the sources for the indigo kit. In this case, we're providing you with like fructose. It just looks like sugar. It's sugar. So that's all there. You can read the instructions on Botanical Colors website, or you can join us for that Zoom workshop, and then she's going to show you how all of that comes together. So I wanted to share with you this little snapshot that I took of my little backyard corner here. And I just recently put that little table in with the intention that, you know, our family's going to sit there and eat, you know, outside in the summer. But I was also going to put like a plastic tablecloth over the whole thing and then maybe die in the backyard. So that was kind of my plan. That's where the kids used to have a sandbox, but I took the sandbox away because they weren't actually using it and just sand was getting everywhere. And so that's where I'm hoping to do a lot of dyeing this summer. And so my plan for this whole study group idea is that I'm going to dye 3 meters of linen fabric. I have the fabric, I've weighed it, I have to scour it first, but it is quite a lot of fabric. And so I think what I'm right now doing is thinking about cutting it up into pieces before I put them into the dye pot, before I scour them, so that they're a little bit more manageable. But before I can do that, I have to figure out where in the fabric I can cut, so I can kind of like roughly cut around the pattern pieces that I'm going to be cutting, because I'm going to be making a dress out of this fabric. Fingers crossed that it all works. And then I'm also going to be dyeing 12 skeins at least of the BFL and silk yarn. I'm thinking it's going to be the DK yarn. We'll see. And the idea is that with those 12 skeins of yarn, I'm going to dye them in all different colors. I'm going to dye 2 of each in various colors, and then I'm going to take one skein from each pair, and then I'm going to over dye it in either indigo or iron to somewhat modify the colors. And then they're all going to come together in a gamp sort of thing. So like we made a color gamp last year for the hand woven color series. This time I'm going to do sort of a hand woven color gamp made with natural dyed colors. And because there are going to be no 2 colors the same, there's not going to be any spots where the overlapping colors are going to be exactly the same. So you might get cochineal overlapping with cochineal that's been over dyed with iron. And so hopefully, in my mind, I see, you know, colors mixing and blending constantly throughout this blanket. So this is the plan. Like I mentioned about sewing with that fabric, before I can actually sew or cut the fabric into the pieces that I'm kind of thinking, you know, just roughly figuring out where to cut these 3 meters, I have to put together the pattern. And so the pattern that I'm going to be making is the emerald dress. It's designed by Made by Ray. And I initially started by printing out 39 pages of pattern and taping it together. This is how sewing patterns come now in this day and age. It used to be that we would go to the store and buy those tissue paper patterns, and then I would like lay them out. I would iron them and then cut the size that you need and all these kinds of things. But they don't come like that anymore, really. And so Vicki and Robin, they both suggested these 2 printing resources. These are available in Canada. They're all actually in Winnipeg. One's called sewyyc.ca and the other one is winnipegsews.com. And both of these websites, both of these services will take your pattern and take your sewing pattern and print it out on big giant paper for only like $5 a sheet. And so that is what I'm going to be doing. I'm waiting for the patterns to come so that I can start to cut them up. Yeah, to avoid having to tape together all these pages. And then, like I was mentioning about that big giant hand-woven blanket and the color gamp sort of effect that I'm trying to make, I want to do it as a double weave blanket. And so I'm preparing a lot of this double weave content that will go on the school in the coming months. We have to prepare for it. And thinking that maybe if we do a weaving study group in the wintertime, that maybe that study group could be about double weave. I'm totally open to ideas. I'm open to suggestions on what we might look at for that kind of study group. We did pose a question in the discussion forums asking people, what would you guys like to do if we're to do a spinning study group in the fall? What should we focus on? What should the topic focus be? But weaving, I'm thinking, could be double weave. We do have a class that's coming out later this year with Amanda Wood. She's going to be weaving on a rigid heddle loom and doing double weave on a rigid heddle. And so double weave on a rigid heddle, double weave on this counter marsh, however you want to do it. But yeah, I'm hoping the idea would be that you could take something like a baby wolf loom that's only 26 inches weaving width and be able to make like a 50-inch wide or 48-inch wide blanket on a loom like that. So yeah, Diana's saying I love the idea of double weave, but just can't wrap my head around it. So that's why I made this skinny little sampler. This is all just leftover BFL silk DK yarn. Just want to see how it works. And it's so cool. It's so cool that you can weave two separate layers at the same time. You can have them joined on one side, you can have them joined on the other side, you can have them joined on both sides and make like a tube. So many things that you can do. So I'm very, very excited about, you can see I'm peeling apart the two different layers here for this. And so the sampler is doing double duty. One of them is to figure out how this double weave structure works, but it's also to do kind of like a test swatch to see if I like this fabric. So just testing the set, weaving BFL and silk DK, plain weave at 10 ends per inch. Is this something that I would like in a blanket? So it's doing a gauge swatch. The other thing that's happening, so that was kind of like what's happening on the Louette Spring Loom at home. This is what is happening on the Mira Loom right now in the studio. I've been talking about doing sectional warping and looking at whether or not sectional warping is a good idea. Oh, just to answer Diana's question, even better, you're going to be showing it how to do it on a rigid heddle loom. Special setup for a rigid heddle loom. Yes, you do need a second heddle to do double weave on a rigid heddle loom. Yeah, fantastic. I think everybody's very interested. Lots of people are interested in double weave. Yes. So for this one here on the loom right now, this Mira loom, in the previous couple of live office hours, I've been talking about this twill gamp that I was making. So I'm using the Gist beam yarn, weaving that. It's a cotton, that's a 3-2 cotton, that's approximately the same weight as an 8-4 cotton, and weaving a twill gamp with that. So all sorts of different patterns, looking at, different, some are diamonds, some are triangles, all sorts of things like that. So I wanted to take one of those patterns and then expand it and then make it into a full all over pattern for a baby blanket. And so I got the sectional equipment, I screwed it onto the loom. I'm making a video about this entire process as well, but trying to see if this is a good way of warping. I've been told that once you start doing sectional warping, you never go back to conventional warping, and I'm not sure. I'm still not proficient enough at it to say, oh, I would never go back. But I was telling Charlotte yesterday that in order to do the warping for this blanket, it was actually 3 blankets, I cannot see doing it in any other way than the way that I'm doing it right now. This blanket is going to be, well, it's 3 blankets, so the warp is about 7 yards long. 7 yards long times 40 inches wide at 14 ends per inch. It's about 560 ends. I cannot imagine winding 560 ends 7 yards by hand on a warping board and then somehow trying to transfer chains and chains and chains of that warp to the loom, spreading it out in the rattle, and then having multiple people hold onto the warp at the same time to provide the tension so that I can beam the back beam. So this sectional setup is basically those 1-inch sections. They're all 1-inch sections. In each section, I have 14 ends of cotton yarn. You can see there's a tension box set up, and then the tension box has all of those threads going through it to provide enough even tension on all of those 14 strands. They are spaced in there's a kind of like a reed. There's an open top reed here and here. A comb, they call it. And so it's all spread out evenly through that comb to make exactly a 1-inch section. They're all going to a spool rack where all of the bobbins have been wound, all of that kind of stuff. And I cannot imagine warping that much yarn in any other way. And I'm doing it basically by myself. I mean, like Nina, my 5-year-old daughter, comes to the studio and she helps me crank the beam. And, we're counting 14 turns and then we're done. And so just between me and my 5-year-old kid, we are warping all of this yarn. And so I'm not sure that it's necessarily a time saver for me so far because maybe I'm not really proficient at it, but it's something that makes it manageable for me as an individual person by myself to warp this loom. Yeah, I can't see doing it any other way. Carrie's asking, is it worthwhile if you prefer shorter warps? I think if you're doing shorter warps and narrower warps, then yeah, I don't think that this is absolutely necessary. I think it's quite easy to just wind a warp on a warping board and then pop that on. You could also wind warps on a warping board like chains that are like just what I have here, like 14 inches, 14 ends for this particular set. You can just wind 1-inch chains and then pop that through your tension box and then crank on individual sections. That's one thing you can do. If you are making your warps conventionally with a warping board and then doing the whole back to front process, you can still have your sectional equipment on here and you just ignore it and you just ignore where everything sort of lies. The benefit of this sectional equipment on the back beam is that you don't need to insert paper or cardboard in between the layers because the 1-inch sections or the 2-inch sections really hold all of your warp ends and prevent them from sliding around. So it's great. DDMM is asking, how big is the sectional warping setup? My loom here is a 45-inch wide loom. Yeah, that's how big it is. And the blanket that I'm planning to make is about 40 inches wide. So that is that. Just checking, at what point do you start considering sectional warping? I think when you have a huge number of EPI. I think, yeah, I'm saying, like, I think that the sectional warping, I think, is very helpful for long warps. And it makes sense in a case like this where I'm working with just plain undyed white cotton. And if you just get a whole bunch of bobbins of white cotton and then you can make a giant warp that way, I think that could be very, very helpful. If you are winding very, very fine yarn, it might also be a nice way of managing very fine yarn. But yeah, I'm still working through this entire process and I will share more of this with you guys in the future. Yeah. So Mandy is saying, my loom is really wide. Amanda is saying, my loom is really wide and already has a sectional warp beam. Yeah. So, yeah. And it's very helpful, yeah, when you're working by yourself. Carrie's saying, I usually do 4 chains for a 60-inch blanket and works fine, but my 14-year-old daughter helps me. Yeah. Yeah. I think that the reason why I'm not able to warp this particular loom by myself is because it's so deep. The loom that I have at home, both of those looms, the Baby Wolf and the Louette Spring loom, they seem a little bit shallower. And so I'm able to hold the crank for the back beam and hold my warp at the same time. So I can kind of like hold it under tension and then crank the back beam myself for those 2 looms. But for this loom, it's just so deep that I can't reach holding the warp and holding the back beam. And that's only for narrow warps. If it was a wide warp, then I would definitely need more bodies to help hold the warp. So yeah, fantastic. So now let's do the questions that you guys sent us. So Terry, emailed me and she was asking, I did not think I needed a blending board because I thought the premise would still work on my drum carder and I just feed the fiber directly onto the drum. What can you tell me that would make me want to go out and buy a blending board? And so I did a little video about blending board and drum carder. I was kind of comparing the two of them, and I found that for myself, the blending board was very direct. It was very like direct creativity. You could place the colors exactly where you wanted them to go, and you had like very direct control over what was happening. You could apply things, yeah, just in exactly the places that you wanted them. It could fit quite a lot of fiber. A lot of fiber can fit onto a blending board. Um, but yeah, it was kind of this idea of precise control, being able to pull off these Rolags. All of that was really, really fun. And it was just significantly faster. I found that when I was using the drum carder is also a fantastic and wonderful and very efficient tool in a lot of ways. The drum carder can hold more fiber, but I found that when I was putting things onto the drum carder, I'm much slower at that. And I think it could be just because I'm trying to make sure that all of the fiber is really evenly loosened and thinned out before I put it onto the drum. There's also something fun about when you put things onto the drum carder, not knowing entirely where they're going to end up. It gets a little bit more distributed, it gets more spread out. And so there's a little bit of fun of not knowing where all of that stuff is going to end up. So it's kind of different levels of control. One of the things that I wanted to share with you was some of the samples that Diana left with me to photograph. And because I have them here, I wanted to show you. Maybe I can just switch this real quick so I can move these things out of the way. But yeah, this is one of the little Rolags that Diana made with hand carders. So Diana shows all of these different techniques to make all different kinds of fiber preparation. So this one was made with a blending board, Rolag rolled off a blending board. This one also kind of like a Rolag preparation coming from a hand carder, beautifully blended. They both have sparkly things in there, really, really lovely. This one was made from a blending board. So this is basically a blending board bat that was taken off and then made into Rolags, one giant Rolag, and then attenuated until it became a giant rainbow. So that's one. And then this is, it's huge. This is the giant bat that came off of the drum carder. So you can see here, giant rainbow bat came off of the drum carder. There's also this rainbow fiber preparation here that came off of the blending board. There's a lot of things that you can do with all of these tools. They all produce fiber preparations that are all slightly different, and it just all depends on you. I don't think that you necessarily have to run out and get a blending board right away, but it's just different ways of having fun. Yeah. Oh my God, rainbows. Yeah. I thought, Diana, I thought about renaming the class Spinning Rainbows because there's so many rainbows and they're so, so lovely. This bat that I'm looking at right now, this bat is the giveaway for this week. So you guys will have to stay tuned to the end to enter the giveaway, but this is what we're going to give away, and we have to give it away soon because every time Nina comes to the studio she wants to play with it and pull things off of it, so we need to send it to someone to spin ASAP. But yeah, definitely you can do this. You watch Diana do this on a drum carder. It is so amazing how she makes this rainbow bat. So lots of things are possible. You don't necessarily need to run out and get a blending board. It's just one of those things that is like fun to have. So, you know, all of these tools, they're all fun to have. And I think that like when you get to the point of you feel like you're bumping up against the edge of how much you have done with one particular tool, if you're curious about trying another tool, then yeah, add a second tool and then see what you might like to do. See what you might like to do with that next tool. But yeah, work with what you have and see what you can make with it. The next thing is a question from Graciela. And so she was talking about how her hands are hurting from spinning. She says, I have a tendency to pinch my fiber quite firmly with my forward hand to prevent the twist from traveling into that triangle zone. This can make my fingers hurt at the pinch point. What am I doing wrong? So I wanted to show you what she's basically talking about. So I have my little e-spinner here. I'm going to spin a little bit for you. Okay, so this is definitely something that happened to me when I first started learning how to spin. And that was that I pinched, I used this finger and my thumb, and I pinched so much for so many hours, pinched so hard that I actually ended up injuring my thumb, like just putting way too much pressure on that. And I found that I did that for quite a long time, for at least months, if not a year, of just like really harsh pushing on the thumb and causing problems. And so, you know, I had to learn that you don't necessarily need to have your hands so close together. And then when your hands are a little bit further apart, they can really help draft the fiber out a little bit easier. The other thing is that I learned from a couple of other spinners. One of them is Margaret Stove, who is spinning really, really fine lace yarn from merino wool. And she was teaching a technique where you only use one finger to kind of like tension your yarn. And so it's almost like you're not pinching at all. You don't even have your thumb involved in that whole process. She was teaching kind of something like that. And then, talking to other spinners who have kind of like learned to draft backwards. And when you draft backwards against the twist, then again, you're not putting too much pressure on your fingers, on your thumb. And so there are a couple of different ways that you can draft your spinning fiber in order to avoid that harsh pinching action. The other thing that you have to look at is the actual staple length of your fiber. So your staple length of the fiber kind of looks like this. So if your hands are this close together, you're holding onto two sides of the same staple. And so it's not going to come apart. And of course, you're going to have to pinch really, really hard to try to get those fibers apart because you're holding on to the same fiber. So if you slide your hands further apart, then you find that the fiber drafts really, really, really easily. So even if you needed to pre-draft your fiber a little bit, that could help with that whole pinching situation. But I would definitely look at ways of experimenting with your fiber, look at the staple length. Yes, Greta's saying relax your forward hand as much as possible while you're spinning because you don't want to injure yourself. I think that my thumb will forever be injured. It doesn't bend back anymore. It used to bend back more, but it doesn't bend back anymore because it's basically like fused. um, yeah, so just to really ease up on that. Yes, Rosemary saying pre-drafting helps so much. So there's that. Yes, please make sure that you're not causing any pain while you spin. Diana, I just saw your message about I'll make a bat for Nina. Thank you so much. That's so sweet of you. So sweet. So that is for Graciela. And the next question that I have is about joining singles when plying. And so for this case, I'm going to, let's get this fiber off of here for a second. Just going to take these singles off. So Megan emailed me and was saying, as I'm spinning, I often have difficulties with my singles floofing apart. I know this has to do with the staple length drafted and the amount of twist added, but what is the best way to rejoin singles and rescue my yarn when I am plying? I'm usually able to save the single from completely degenerating while spinning the single, but this happens while I'm plying. I found it gets progressively worse to the point that I have to disconnect both singles and then start over, or just leave the whole thing out entirely in a corner while it sits out in a timeout. So This is interesting because I'll show you how I learned to rejoin singles. And I tried to look around and see if other people do it in a different way. We do have an upcoming class with Kim McKenna. She's coming to film here tomorrow, actually. And she has lots and lots of very cool tips and tricks for spinning. So I'll see if she does it any differently. But this is basically how I learned. And Diana is saying, if anything hurts when you are spinning or any fibercraft, stop and see why. It should not hurt. Take breaks, should not hurt. Okay, so I turned my e-spinner, so it's going to go in the opposite direction. So it's going to go this way. And so I just have a ball of singles that I have wound into a center pull ball. This is some stuff from a carded prep that I was playing with. Just going to get this going a little bit. Okay, so the challenge of getting everything off of a center pull ball is getting it to unwrap off the center pull ball without it getting all tangled and stuff like that. But okay, I think it's working. So let's just say you are playing and basically you broke one of the singles. So you have this happening and then you have this and you're like, how do I rejoin these two? How do I make these stick together so I can continue playing, right? So the way that I learned how to do this is basically you look at your two strands that you're playing together, okay? And then you see where that V is or that Y, and then I would take your singles that is broken and I would just sort of overlap it in here, keeping sure that all of these are under the same amount of tension. You can kind of see now I have 3 together. So this new singles that I'm trying to rejoin is in between the Y, okay? And I'm gonna start that again. And then it will apply together, okay? And then you can kind of see, you can barely see. So you can see this is where I had my little tag. It was not hanging, it was hanging out. I could probably get rid of that. You know, I could just break that off and get rid of that. But you can see that's where the join has happened. But hopefully you can see that there's almost very little noticeable change in here. There might be a section that's about this long where it's actually a 3-ply, but you can barely see that. You can barely see that. And then even when you go to knit a sweater or something like that, when you're joining on a second ball of yarn, normally you just kind of knit 2 yarns together. Like you're using two strands of yarn at the same time. It might double up for maybe 3 or 4 stitches, and then you move on with the second skein of yarn that you're rejoining, and then you just ignore the first yarn. So it's kind of like the same thing is happening here in the yarn. So you have your 2-ply, there's maybe about this much of a 3-ply, and then you just move on with the rest of your yarn. Hopefully that makes sense. Dorothy is asking, is there a tutorial on SOS for dyeing fiber? Yes, for sure. So we have a class called Dyeing Intentional Color and Dyeing Complex Color, and both of those dyeing classes are about dyeing with acid dyes, and they include information about both yarn and fiber. So hopefully that will help you there. So yeah, if you guys have any other questions about spinning or anything like that, please feel free to ask or anything like that, because this is so convenient to have your e-spinner on your desk at work. You can spin all day, any day, anytime. And this is the last question for today. This one was from Erin. And so Erin is asking, as an aspiring designer, it would really help to understand your process for selecting designs to publish under the Sweet Georgia name. Do you put out open calls for submissions? If so, how do I get myself onto the list? What specific aspects of a submission draw your attention? Anything else you can discuss that I've neglected to mention is also appreciated. So the very first thing that I would do is I would encourage you to go to this first link, sweetgeorgiayarns.com/about/designers. And so we have a list that we email a couple times a year where we do send out a call for submissions. And so this photo here, this is a sample of what goes out in our call of submissions. Tabitha creates this twice a year for the collections, and she pulls together all of the colors that we're looking at for that season, the kinds of textures we're looking for. This is the one that we did for this fall. So like, yeah, lush, cozy, minimalist, and just really comfortable things. Different. She pulls together photographs of what the silhouettes might look like, and so people can use that as inspiration, like a mood board, and then work towards that kind of feel in their designs. And so you would submit all of your designs to Tabitha for that. It just so happens that Tabitha also created a class called Designer Process, and it's on the school. And she walks through the process of, how do you put together a proposal? How do you put together a submission? How do you submit to a magazine? How do you submit to us? How do you communicate what it is that you need to communicate in order to have somebody select your design for publication? So all of that information is out there, and you can feel free to also reach out to Tabitha in the discussion forums. You can just hit at Tabitha. You'll find her name, Tabitha Hedrick, and then she can answer questions about designer things as well. So when you're on that list, you'll get all of the updates for designers. Right now, just a couple months ago, we created a program called the Designer in Residence program, and brought on 2 young designers to work with Tabitha in looking at, how do design collections get made? How do you work with tech editors? How do you do all these kinds of things? And so you'll see more and more about what's happening with Ruth. Ruth is also in the school. Matt Akers, he's also in the school. You'll see both of those designers in residence there in the school, in the forums, chatting, all of this kind of stuff. And yeah, it's kind of working through with new designers. And yeah. So feel free to ask any other questions that you might have about knitwear design or things like that. Hopefully that helps provide some direction. And now I wanted to share with you guys the work that you have been posting in the forums. This is just, it's been really fantastic to see all of the projects that are going up into this discussion forums. I wanted to highlight a couple of for you. This one is by Jamie. Jamie W. You can find the link for it here. But this is the first ever sweater she has ever knit. So congratulations, amazing. But she did this sweater. The sweater is called, the pattern is called Sweet, and it's by Kim Hargreaves, who used to be the creative director for Rowan for many, many years, I believe. And she knit this one in our yarn, the Tough Love Sock in apricot. And I wanted you guys to see the amazing embroidery work that she put on this. Like, look at the shading of the flower petals and the leaves, like, it's so beautiful. And then the beads as well, just really, really lovely. I encourage you guys to go to the forums and check out a lot of the other posts that Jamie has posted. She's posted quite a lot of her work, and embroidery work. There is this canvas work piece that I keep telling everybody about. Everybody that I've been talking to, I'm like, have you seen this canvas work piece? It's stunning and beautiful. So I encourage you to go and check out the things that Jamie is making over there. So thank you so much for sharing your first sweater with us. She said that she ended up changing the yarn and the gauge pretty substantially from the original design. She lengthened the sleeves. She added about 5 centimeters of waist shaping. And the flower design here is by Trish Burr from her book Needle Painting Embroidery. And she says, I was going for something a little bit slouchy, but I'm pretty happy with the fit. But more than anything, I'm just jazzed that I've made something myself for the first time. So awesome. Congratulations on that. First sweater is always so special. This one is by Angelique. So Angelique made the hand-woven sock Gradient Sock Blank Scarf. We needed a better name for this, but it's from the Hand Woven Colors series. It's episode 3 about the sock blank scarves. And the idea was using two gradient sock blanks, one in the warp and one in the weft, and having them overlap each other. And where those colors mix and combine, you're going to see like this beautiful gradient moving across the scarf. And so this is the scarf that she's made. She's done it in 2212. And yeah, you can see the gradient of colors kind of goes from olive to this blue greeny color to a deeper teal turquoise color. So really, really lovely the way that this all turned out. She says, I know it sounds weird to say, but it was such a great experience. The yarn made colors that I didn't see in the braid, but then the knitting balanced it out so that it didn't become, oh wait, no, that's not it. Oh yeah, no, that's from a different one. But yeah, this is Angelique's scarf. Thank you. Really, really nicely done. This is Amanda. Amanda is in the chat today. She is watching from Twitch, I think, today. But this is what was posted. Amanda started a thread called Amanda's Study Notes, and it is in the Natural Dyeing Study Group thread. This is a fleece that Amanda is working through. So she's sort of processing a fleece, washing it, spinning it up, seeing what it can become. She has a lot of details about what she's observing in this fleece and how she's going to be working with it. And I believe she is going to be natural dyeing with much of it. So Mandy the Philomath on Twitch, that is Amanda who is doing this fleece right now. There's a big conversation also in the forums about how to wash fleece, how to prepare fleece, how to store raw fleece. All of that information is really good. I feel like it doesn't help me because I have 2 raw fleeces in the other office right now that are probably have been in a cardboard box for more than 10 years. And everything that I'm reading about is how you should wash it as soon as you get it, so that way the grease doesn't stay into the wool, and so many things to do when you're washing a fleece. And I just, in 10 years, haven't gotten around to it. And yeah, hoping to, might not be this summer because we're doing natural dyeing this summer. I have other things to do this summer, but one of these days. Also wanted to share something else that Amanda posted in the forums, and that is that she wove her own shoelaces. This is so cool. Just so cool. So she has this ankle loom. You can see the tiny little narrow warp on here. It looks like it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 warp ends in total. And she says that it's woven with 10-2 cotton, and the pattern is a single flower stacked vertically, but when you weave the tape tubular, you get a spiral effect. And so basically she has created round shoelaces using an inkle loom, where normally you would weave flat things. So yeah, super, super cool. And I wanted you guys to see this. It doesn't take a ton of yarn, right? Like it's 7 or 8 warp ends and you can make your own shoelaces or something. So that is fantastic. Just wanted to share with you guys how cool that was. Yeah. Stephanie's saying, oh yeah, my jaw dropped when I saw those laces. Totally. And then this one is by Eileen. So this is, she said she spun her first hand-painted braid, first one ever. This one says it looks like cat and sparrow hand-dyed fibers. The colorway is called White-Faced Woodland. She spun the singles at 20 wraps per inch on her new wheel, which I believe is a Alouette. No. I think it's an Ashford Kiwi. I'm not sure. But yeah. And then she made a 2-ply yarn. It's about 116 meters. She said she wasn't sure if she would have enough to make anything, but she ended up knitting the hat and still had leftovers at the end of the day. So yeah. Last month we were talking about people spinning their first ever yarn. And in this case, Evelyn spun her first ever hand painted yarn. And so that is really fun and really lovely and very exciting. So you guys can check out those links. I always link to the actual page in the forums, and you guys can go take a look at those. And yeah, leave some comments, show some love. So this is the rainbow bat, the giant rainbow bat that I showed earlier, made by Diana on her drum carder. We are going to give away this huge bat this month. And the question is, if we're going to run a study group for spinning in the fall, what should we focus on? Could it be Katrina's material from the Spinning Up a Level, where we go through all the different drafting techniques and drafting methods, doing the work, as we say? Or should we focus on one particular technique? Greta and I had talked about, like, could we do a study group where all we do is long draw, all the different variations of long draw, something like that? Or could it be something that's project focused, where you take, a pile of fluff, like maybe from raw fiber or from a carded prep that you've made, and then make it into a finished project. It's almost like a spin along to get to a final object. Or could it be something like focusing on better techniques? So, we have an upcoming class that we're going to be filming with Kim McKenna tomorrow and on Monday. And it's really about these very, very subtle changes that you can make to your spinning in order to make better yarns overall. And so maybe the study group could be about making those very subtle improvements to your spinning, so that you could just basically level up your skills, really, spinning up a level using spindles, Stephanie is saying here. Yeah. So a lot of different ideas. I'm totally open to ideas. We're talking about this right now, thinking about brainstorming, how are we going to do this? And so I would just encourage you guys to go to that link, and that will take you to a survey. And when you do the survey, you will be entered in the giveaway to win the giant bat. And we'll keep the giveaway open until tonight, and then we'll pick somebody, and I'll post that in the forums, you guys. I've been posting those in the forums every month, who is the winner of each giveaway. So yeah, thank you guys so much for participating. I think I have just, yeah, and that's just our contact information. You guys can see us, where our website is, schoolofsweetgeorgia.com, on Instagram, SweetGeorgia, and School of SweetGeorgia on Instagram, and obviously our information there as well. But yeah, I'm gonna leave it here, and then yeah, feel free to pop in any other questions you guys might have in the chat. That is basically what we have for today. And if you have a minute, just go to that little survey link, so that way we can hear more about what you are interested in doing later on this fall. There's lots and lots of spinning content right now in the school, lots of spinning courses, and a lot of spinning conversation happening in the forums. So I feel like fall is the perfect time for spinning, and it would be really good to think about what we want to focus on for that time. Yeah. Karen saying, I would love to do long draw, but also need a lot of help with chain playing. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we're very, very excited for all of the spinning stuff that's happening. Yeah. And again, just a reminder, if you guys are thinking about doing the natural dyeing study group, you can, somebody mentioned the word audit earlier in the chat, and definitely you can just join and watch and follow along with what everybody is doing. You don't necessarily have to do it at the same time, but if you are needing like a little bit of motivation, a little bit of push, a little bit of encouragement, it's really nice to be able to do these things together as a group, and share, what we're working on as we do it. So that is there for you if you would like. Fantastic. Thank you guys so much for being here today. This was so fun. I have really, really been enjoying doing it in this format, where I get to see all these familiar names and familiar faces in the chat. Yeah, it's really lovely to have you all here. Okay, fantastic. I'll see you guys inside the forums, and then I'll see you next month in the next live office hours. All right, see you later. Bye for now.